When Ileana told us she couldn't be with us, we honestly asked her who she would really prefer to substitute for her. And we were very fortunate that she recommended her successor as chair of the subcommittee on the Middle East. It's now my pleasure to introduce Congressman Steve Chabot from Ohio. Representative Chabot is now beginning his 8th term in the House of Representatives, where he has been a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee for all those years. It's my pleasure. Please welcome Congressman Chabot to our community.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Norm. Good morning. I'm honored to be able to speak the summit here this morning. I really do appreciate it. My district is Cincinnati, Ohio, but I actually flew in yesterday from Baltimore, where the Republicans were on our annual retreat up there. It was 25 degrees, 75 degrees here, and I really do appreciate the invitation. And Republicans were up there strategizing how we can better work with the Democrats this year or not. So, but hopefully we will work together. And I only have a few minutes, so I'm going to keep my remarks short. And I also learned my lesson years ago when I spoke to my daughter's class. I think she was about in the 1st grade at the time. It was one of these bring your dad to class and tell him about your job kind of things. And after I got done talking to these little 1st graders, this little girl came up to me, and she was just a little thing, and she looked up at me and she said, "Sir, that's the worst speech I ever heard." So I felt kind of bad, you know, thinking, what did I say wrong to these kids? And my daughter wanted to cheer me up, so she came over and she said, "Dad, don't worry about her. She just repeats what all the other kids say." So I'll try to do a better job here this morning, and I will keep it brief, I assure you. I'm really honored to be filling in for our great friend, Ileana Ros-Lehtinen. And let's hear it for her. Ileana. She is now the distinguished chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and let me tell you, she's going to be a great chairwoman. She really will be, no question about it. And when I was first elected to Congress back in 1994, which was Newt Gingrich and the contract with America, the revolution and all that back then, I was appointed to, among other committees, the House, what was then the House International Relations Committee, which subsequently became the House Foreign Affairs Committee. And I served under Ileana in her first chairmanship, was chairman of the Africa Committee. And then I served under, when she chaired the Trade Subcommittee, and then I served under her and was her vice chairman under the Middle East and South Asia Committee. And I was honored and selected just a couple of weeks ago to kind of follow in her footsteps and was selected to chair for this Congress the House Subcommittee on the Middle East and South Asia. And as you know, Ileana has been one of Israel's staunchest and strongest and most loyal advocates in the United States, and I intend to follow in her footsteps. So, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm well aware, and I know we're all well aware, of the ongoing efforts to delegitimize Israel. It's been pointed out, of course, that Israel is the only nation in the world that continually has to defend its very rights to exist in the United Nations. I observed that firsthand when I was appointed back in 2001 to serve a one-year term as the representative, the delegate to the UN from the Congress. They pick one Republican and one Democrat each year to serve in that capacity. And coincidentally, it was a year after 9/11 that I served in the UN, so it was a very interesting time indeed. But I remember attending a special summit that focused on the subject of human trafficking and international child abduction. We'd had a particularly egregious case in my district and got very involved in that. So this was a program on that, people from all over the world. We'd spend the day in meetings and eventually came together as a group to debate a resolution on that issue. After dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's and disposing of various Chinese motions to change thus to therefore and to but. We finally moved to a vote, and we adopted an overall resolution. But that wasn't the whole story. What was really transpiring behind the scenes was a full-scale effort orchestrated by the Arab bloc to eject Israel from the conference. Israeli diplomats and Israeli allies, including our American diplomatic corps, in fact, spent much of the otherwise positive and productive day fending off yet another wrong-headed attempt to exclude Israel from participation in an international conference. It's absolutely outrageous. This, of course, was not an isolated incident. In the 2006-2007 session of the General Assembly, the UN failed to consider any resolution addressing Sudan's role in the Darfur genocide. I've actually been to Darfur twice personally, but they found the time to enact some 22 resolutions condemning Israel. They can't act on Darfur, yet 22 times they condemn Israel. It's an outrage. Even as we gather here this morning, I'm told efforts are underway in New York to bring forward a resolution condemning Israel on the settlement issue. I had another firsthand experience with efforts to delegitimize Israel and deny its right to defend itself when I traveled on a bipartisan codel to The Hague in 2004 with my former colleague, Congressman Robert Wexler of Florida, who is and was a very good friend. You will recall that the ongoing intifada had claimed many Israeli lives, soldiers, police, innocent civilians among them. Rocket attacks and suicide bombings were commonplace. The Israeli government responded to the terrorism by building a barrier or a wall or security fence, whatever terminology one prefers to use, between Israel and the West Bank to prevent Palestinian terrorists from entering into populated areas. As a direct result, I would argue, terrorist attack dropped markedly, and innocent Israelis were spared the daily threat of violence. Not surprisingly, the UN condemned Israel for erecting the fence and brought Israel to the International Court of Justice, or World Court, challenging the legality of the fence construction and maintaining that it was a violation of Palestinian human rights. Congressman Wexler and I spoke to over 3,000 Israelis and supporters of Israel there in Hague who had come to oppose what was a ridiculous case against Israeli self-defense. I maintained at that time that the people who ought to be condemned were those who encouraged their children to aspire to be suicide bombers, not people who build fences to protect innocent lives, and I still believe that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So we certainly know that an organized effort at delegitimization exists, and we know it is dangerously anti-Semitic. It is a very serious campaign to destroy, if possible, the state of Israel as we know it. I recently read a quote from Jerry Silverman, the CEO of the Jewish Federations of North America, and he cited, and we heard this earlier this morning, that delegitimization is the second most dangerous threat to Israel after Iran's pursuit of nuclear weapons, and I believe that that's the case. Success for those promoting the delegitimization campaign means imminent danger for Israel. It means political and economic isolation, and it means an end to any meaningful peace process in the Middle East. Israel's right to exist is clearly being threatened by a calculated, relentless, comprehensive campaign. And as Americans, we are right to combat it. Israel is our friend and ally. It's a vibrant democracy in a region where democracy has otherwise failed to flourish. We must support Israel. Thank you. Thank you. Let me conclude by commending all of you for organizing this event today. This forum and others like it are critical if we're to turn back this dangerous tide. I applaud you for taking away from your busy lives to recognize the ongoing threat and to stand up for Israel. I hope more of these gatherings will be taking place around this nation and around the world. Those who seek the destruction of Israel are relentless. We must be relentless too. God bless you all. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.